Hello, and welcome back to another episode of my Comprehending Consciousness series. My name is Allie with amariespeaks.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is episode 20. If you haven't seen any other episodes, I highly suggest checking them out. Each one is created to sort of be sequential in watching, but you can definitely just click on a term if it sparks your interest as well. I tried to make them quick and educational, informal sort of tidbits about each term or phrase that is commonly used within the New Age community or the spiritual world. Sort of bringing a lot of them being brought down into the mainstream these days, right? Which is kind of why I was sparked to do the whole series, to sort of bridge the gap between the 3D and the 5D ascension kind of world that's happening and coagulating out there beautifully, on the peripheral of the 3D matrix that is imploding currently. So if you're new to awakening, if you're new to this line of thinking or talking, welcome. There's tons of us out here on the peripheral, just kind of watching this whole circus show that takes place in the mainstream. It has been definitely kicking up gear in the last 2 years, right? We've seen, who knows if it's the finale or not. People think it could be. I mean, it might be the finale of the show. However, it could just be that middle act time. Anyways, to focus on our point today, episode 20 is going to be about mind control, or maybe you've heard people say MK Ultra, or Project Monarch is another one that people use a lot out there, or the Arcturian soldiers, I think, is another term. The Montauk programs, and that's a little bit segmented to different than sort of just strict mind control, but these are all sorts of avenues that have been pursued off the main hallway of mind control, right? And that in itself is the corridor, passageway that all people who choose to orientate themselves within the matrix will have to navigate through, right? And how we navigate through that is really what determines the basis of your reality, what you experience, what you believe to be true, right? What you know, what you can comprehend, and many of us are starting to see the charade for what it is and to really just be sick and tired of it. Just saying, well, I don't want to play your game. I don't want to go along with the lies. This doesn't align with my best and most highest good. These systems don't benefit my children. As we grow and operate within the world, the matrix that we're presented with, right? Many of us are presented with these choice points that really don't feel good, don't feel right. And we have such a multitude of ways to deal with this, right? Now, within that working, the understanding here is that I'm presenting this episode of mind control, right, is that, yeah, there is this kind of mainstream version, just like all the other terms and phrases that I've been talking about here. It's very quickly disregarded or talked about as like not true or exaggerated, or, people are making it up in their heads or whatever. Into that, I just love to always say, well, isn't everything made up in everybody's head? Isn't the whole world, your whole experience in your head, first and foremost? But that great that great deceit that we tell ourselves right there that, well, I don't want to talk about that right now. Well, that doesn't really matter. Well, any kind of excuse and diversion from accepting that, oh, well, that is true. Okay, well, let's just stand in that. We can still explore from that space. No, we divert from it and we try to create false sense of security and foundations that don't really exist. And then we wonder after, when we've built everything up, why it's crumbling. But it's because it was built initially on the lie. It's a faulty foundation. There's cracks in it. And unfortunately, a lot of those cracks, a lot of those misplaced things, and the control mechanisms, they're not actually like misplaced and faulty by accident. It's by design. It's very controlling, very cunning placements of information and of doorways and of access points and understandings and light even, right? To see through the labyrinth of the fun house, the not so fun house, like I like to say a lot of times, that is this 3D matrix that we're all residing within. And the negative agenda and the ones who are operating this mind control, the whole thing of it, right? They really rely on all those who are a part of their system or their belief that that it will operate within the matrix, right, and go along with it. They must believe the illusions. They must commit to them, right? And with that, the initial commitment is disregarding your sovereign worth in itself. And so once you've made that, well, they know they've already got you because you gave up I don't want to say gave up because you can never really give it up. That's a fooled view of it. But they make you believe that you could give it up, and so that you could give it up. But really, you've just hidden it so deeply, or backed it away, or bent it, or whatever, into this great lie, this great disservice to yourself. That creates that real deep shadow, denying, your initial sovereignty and saying something is more valuable than you, and then submitting in servitude to that thing. And then you're essentially like harnessing your eternal light to their worth and their operations of their system, and they can just, siphon your energy right off of you. Everything you do, all the workings that you do with your light or within the system or whatever, are fed back to the creator of the system, right? That's how the negative system works. And we have to remember, in this beautiful world and realm of duality, we have both. And to ignore the dark side and to ignore the negative agenda is just ignorance. It's not smart. It's not beneficial to creating, positive solutions either, which is generally what the positive light side should really mostly be focused on. It's not feel good, don't feel any pain, all love and light, the fluff of it, Band-Aids and soothing baths, scented candles or whatever. It's much deeper than that. And once you can get that, then you aren't fooled by the matrix show anymore. Then you're not going to be going and bending yourself down into servitude in the system. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't align. You've woken to your worth, and you don't want to be a part of those systems anymore. And that's what's happening. And that's the biggest fear, of course, of the shadowed negative agenda, of the 3D matrix in itself. The infringing negative overlay relies on obedient adherence of multiple, of never-ending, users, so to speak. And the more that we could realize that, the more that we would accept the notion that negative agendas would use mind control to control the masses. So many people will look at that and just be like, oh, that's a bunch of conspiracy theories, right? However, having that kind of abhorrence, right, to just be like, no, don't even need to look at that, that's ridiculous, could never happen, write it off and just move on, you're really blockading real conscious awareness of if that could happen and why that shouldn't happen, and really setting up a true boundary between yourself and that thing, because you've explored the gray areas there and really set more defined boundaries. But when you just block it off, it's like you can't even go there, and it's always going to be there waiting for you, though, because there's that weird energetic curiosity, intention. We have to remember, right? Everything's an energetic exchange. The world in the ether, the whole universe that is set up, doesn't run off of verbiage and words spoken. It's in energetic intentions. And also, I don't want to underplay the value of words spoken, because we live in a harmonious, harmonic, mathematically beautiful universe, ever creating, ever flowing orchestra, a song of notes, right? Everything is playing, vibrating, moving, having its own specific tone that it reverberates within the field, right? And the more that we accept that, the more that we understand that, and the more that you could understand your own personal tone and what you seek to sound like and enjoy to play, then you make more conscious decisions. Then you can't be mind controlled, because you're seeking your own sound. You are your controller, and you have a centered sovereign worth, and you're connected to source, and you have positive love and protection light to guide you. But when we don't have this connection, and of course in this world that has been totally bashed and stomped down, mocked, distorted, they do not want anybody to even want to explore that. They want me to sound like ridiculous, like a fool right now, like a fairy, airy fairy, hippy dippy, woo woo kind of thing. That's never real. That's magical imagination crap that we make up in our heads. But back to that, you make it up in your head. You make everything up in your head. We are the observer. And I'm sorry, but no matter how zoned in and indoctrinated into this little paralleled world of scientism and ologies you might be, there you hit a bump when you want to accept their great slit experiment in the observer. There's a lot of holes in it, and it doesn't really, whatever, I don't want to get into that, but a lot of these people who are indoctrinated, this is something they live by. This is one of their creeds. This is a law. This is one of the 10 commandments of scientism, if you want to say, so to speak, this great split experiment that proves quantum physics, sort of, and the wave particle theories. But it says that the observer, its intention defines reality, creates the vision they see, that they observe. And so we have to remember that. That is so powerful. Look how powerful beings we are. And so when people say, why would they want to do that? And, they couldn't want to. And, if we remember, it's energetic exchange. This life and experience of evolution is about collecting energetic charges and moving through them. Creator beings, interacting with others and creating things here on an energetic level as well as a physical level, right? If we understood, the multitude of layers of densities and, dimensions, and pulling things down from imagination space and 70, 60, 5D, all these, how that works, right? And we would understand the magnitude of worth of the creator being the human is, and that we are, each of us, just to be here. But of course, they want us to be fooled. They don't want you to ever believe that, because you wouldn't be going along with their circus show if you had an ounce of belief of the great worth that you are. So they have these wonderful, of course they have mind control tactics. Of course they spend millions, billions of dollars funneling into alphabet programs and to studying so deeply the human being and what we are, and trying to get it to do what we want it to do, because it's highly powerful, So to say that wouldn't be happening, and to deny that the negative can be intelligent and cunning and ingenious in its own sick way, that is, in extension, just feeding that. It's okaying that, basically, because you're not willing to accept that could be true, that it might be true, and how do we move through that if it is true? How do we call back our boundaries and protect our sacred positive energy if that's the direction that the negative is choosing to extremely go to, right? Because it can come down to that, and perhaps it will come down to that. at this point with the Great Divide, that there will need to be an external cutting to be like, no, you're not infringing on my boundaries. And that in itself is a sacred right. And we have to remember that, because like the shadow, the mind control, these lassos that they have from the 3D matrix and all of their settings and programs, the codes that we are so innately kind of birthed into this world with, and both through nature and through nurturing ways, both in our cells and in our DNA and in our genetics and ancestry, do we pass down, physical code to how our body structures and our physical vessels operate and grow. There's the other added layer of the energetics, the karma, the workings, the knowledge, the lessons, right? The love, that type of thick energies that take up our space as well, that are handed down through creation and conception, and that are an extension part of our ancestors that we do reside within, our energetic body and our spiritual body, right? Those types of informations are also passed down, and they it works it's very beneficial to the negative structuring to have some infringing instructions there to ensure that the users are compromising their sovereignty, that they are skeptical about their sovereign worth at every choice point, that they are ever reminded of their little cog place, and they have ultimate commitment to the lie of servitude. So there will, their mind control tactics are so important to them to make sure that everybody stays in these little liar loops, that they never seek their true deep meanings or the true deep meaning of life, because they would adhere to these systems of nonsense and lies if they knew what the truth felt like and what it feels like to live in your truth. So yes, there is a, foamy, frivolous level, and people do sort of hop on the mind control bandwagon, and maybe there is some exaggerations of why and how mind control takes place. However, I don't want to, that should never deter us from being vigilant and understanding that it takes place. It does. It has great worth. And that, if you spent 20 minutes on any search engine, you will find even declassified regular alphabet here right in front of your face, citizens, is proof that we've done this in the past. We did explore these avenues, or whatever. So it's undeniable to really write it off as some kind of crazy conspiracy theories. It's totally real. You can see it in your own life anyways. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. We use it everywhere, or they use it everywhere in the psychological world and academia world, right? To control behaviors. We have so many examples of it in the science world, right? Of these control mechanisms that we use to steer all types of behaviors, corrective and harmful, right? And sometimes it's easy to pigeonhole MK Ultra, hear people talking about mind control the masses and television, all of these kind of phrases that are everywhere out there, hypnotism and all this stuff, where it can be, you can really just think like people are totally whacked, but in fact, it's very real. It's very scientific, very provable, and I'm pushing 20 minutes, and so I love to keep these videos really short to just give you a quick tour of the iceberg. If you're really interested in this kind of structuring about mind control, I've made a couple of videos so far on the negative agenda, which are over on BitChute. I will share them here in case you find this on YouTube. I don't put them on YouTube. And I'm going to be getting more into a bit more about this, like how it works, the specifics of it, some tactics that they use in these traps. how to identify them and work with them in your own world, and how to help others, you know, to identify them and get out of them. So I'll link those if you're interested in diving deep on those right now. You can totally check out that for further information. But for this video space, mostly for beginners and people who are just waking up, so I hope I haven't overwhelmed you too much, but I hope that I really have kind of broken the stigma, cracked the ice a bit here, that you can look at your own life and your own understandings of things, your conceptions and your own truths, and see and feel what they are and explore them for yourself, and say, is this something that I really believe, or is this something that was put upon me? Is this an overlay of some kind? You know, did I inherit this from, you know, my mom, my mother, my father, excuse me, you know, my grandmother, or like a sister, or society, or somebody that I want to be like, a mentor, you know? Is this something that I do personally really resonate with, you know? That's how we get into a space of understanding what our thoughts are our own, and protecting your own thought space, because it is totally scientifically proven that people can infringe upon other people's thought spaces and energetic bodies, your frequency, your whole control. You know, there's a multitude of aspects to that, and a multitude of ways. So studies and all types of things. If you're new to this and you don't understand, definitely go look at different ways of frequency control, and how frequency affects all things, you know, and especially the human body, you know. There's tons of disharmonious things. Just think of the things like, you should probably know already, but like nuclear radiation, or regular radiation, or chemotherapy, these kinds of things. You know that's a poisoning of sorts. Well, that's a poisoning from a ray, from a wave, you know, from a frequency, and there's a multitude of them, right? And same thing with its harmonics, right? And beautiful frequencies. We have beautiful keys and we have disharmonious keys. So go check that out if that's new to you, and hear about, you know, like why certain keys sound beautiful and why some don't, you know. Or check out Dr. Emoto's water experiments, and how he's frozen water with beautiful phrases sung over it, and it looks like beautiful crystals of snow, like that you would draw, beautifully geometric, sacred looking. And then saying terrible things over others, and it looks distorted and crippled and broken, and there's no shapes, there's no symmetry to it. It looks toxic and sick. In that, you know, those are simple explanations, or examples, say, for you to take in and say, well, how could that reverberate back into my own direct world? You know, what do I want my body vessels, cells to look like and feel like, and my experience to be like? You know, what do I want to reflect out to the collective? That kind of space and understanding and thinking from individual space is how we protect ourselves from mind control. Living in your heart center and being tuned to your faith, to yourself, to God, your angels, source, higher self, ancestors, ascended masters, whoever you choose to resonate with, you know, whether it's off planet, on planet, multidimensional, who, you know, or just yourself, or just plain God. You know, you don't have to be super crazy with specifics or definitions. You know, source, the universe, whatever. If you are connected and listening to that great beacon, nothing will infringe you. Nothing can come in. Or nothing will be able to, you know, draw your navigation away from your true north, is a more obvious or more like explanatory way to think of it, because things can try to come in and infringe, but when you have strong boundaries, they don't. And generally, it's most things will deter away from you. The shadows, the negative energies, people who are negatively focused will just like not matriculate in your field, really, because they don't appreciate the resonance of it. So they kind of skirt around the edges, because it doesn't feel good to them, and they know right away, well, it's polarity magnets, right? You know how they bounce away from each other, sort of. You feel in the field, and they don't attract you. Just like mind control, frequency control cannot affect you if you can strengthen your resonance, your frequency in your body, right? And that's another huge reason about the control mechanisms, because, and I'm going to say this quickly and then I'm going to close this video, but also if you haven't seen the Earth's Ascension, the Humanity Ascension videos that I've done on the series, how we're on this evolutionary path, right, of growth over time, centuries, lives, whatever. Humanity is turning into a crystalline beings, more heart-centered. We're supposed to be ascending, into like fourth density beings and moving from into this 4D, 5D space, lightness, more etheric base. And so it's not harmonious, and it's not beneficial to the more hard structure of the 3D, sorry. So as these things pull apart, right, they really are trying to hold on. They're really trying to keep the split from happening, because they don't want to lose the power of the users of all the systems that the negative agenda has, like on the more 3D spectrum, darker side of duality, right? So I guess that's where I will end it on this episode of Mind Control for Comprehending Consciousness series, episode 20. Thank you so much if you have joined me. I just feel like I'm missing the ending of what I wanted to really close with here. I'm so sorry to keep extending on after I said I was done. But I really wanted, I guess it's like the ending of like how we could get out of the matrix, right? Or how you can just like make sure that you're not mind controlled by it. Just resonating with your highest good, right? But also bringing in unexpectedness, curiosity, humor, and joy. Make unexpected choices. Go against the grain, right? When there's a heavy level of, oh, this is definitely going to happen. Oh, I'm supposed to react this way. Oh, I know if this happens, this is going to happen. But it's kind of feeling like trapped in a cycle of negativity, or in a mind control setting, right? Where you feel like, oh, this is orchestrated for me. This is definitely the way it's going to happen. Make an unexpected decision. If you really want the change, if you really want to shake it up, then shake it up. Do the opposite of what you normally would, or make a joke out of it. React in a totally opposite way than you would. Find a humor in it. If it's something negative, if it's something that normally you would go along with just because, don't. Just say no, thank you. It doesn't have to be super extreme to where it's going to cause absolute disruptions, but shake it up and change it, because mind control only works when we allow it to. It's only when that whispering of, oh, just go, it's easier, it's going to happen this way, just keep it going. When we just listen to that and just go with it, that's only when the mechanisms work. When you say, actually, I don't like that, no, I don't consent, I'm going to shake it up, I'm going to change it, I need change, I need this, I'm listening to me. The sovereign thing says, whoa, something needs, I don't like the feeling of that. I'm being controlled, I'm being manipulated. Shake it up. And it will shake ripples into that control mechanisms, and break it apart for you, or for the other people too around you, especially if you can see it's a working control mechanism with like social interactions, or between a relationship where you keep running into these same things that feel controlled, super triggered reactions that always like turn out the same, or the same fight that causes the same thing, or it's always the same reaction to my kid making this disruption, or making, when you switch it up, you'll see, oh, it changes. And then the next time, maybe it happens just differently, a little differently, or because you're expecting it to happen differently, it does a little bit, right? And then you switch it up more. You will see like different opportunities erupting and being presented, and there'll be ones that the mind control mechanisms aren't expecting either, and so they have to reroute their whole thing, and they have to lash out in different ways, and yeah, it causes disruptions to the control mechanisms, but if we all do that, the overlay of the matrix isn't going to have time to keep up with us anymore, right? And we won't be controllable masses, because we won't be consenting to that. We won't be following, the mainstream. We'll be living from our individual beacons of sovereignty and light. So, okay, I'm really going to close it out now. That's how I wanted to end it, with some positivity, because mind control is such a heavy topic. I don't like to leave things feeling negative and hopeless. But if you are curious about more of those, I'll leave the links below for BitChute. If you want to take a look at some of the more negative agendas, tricks, and traps, I have a couple videos on that out already, and I will continue to put them out. And in the meantime, you can always find me on amariespeaks.com or over on Telegram under Amarie Speaks. So I will catch you next time. Thanks again for joining so much.